My wife recently confessed to cheating on me and had an abortion before our wedding, 6 years ago. Story 1. My wife 37F and I 35 meters met 10 years ago. We dated for 3 years before we got engaged for 1 year. We have 3-year-old twin girls. I can say we have a great marriage. Last week her brothers and sisters and their spouses came to visit. It had been long since we saw them, and the slightest chance they got they came to see us. Honestly, we had a good time catching up. We talked and chatted about different topics. Then the topic of infidelity came up. Her cousin had been cheated on by his wife, and we were talking how the guy was suffering and how horrible it is for him and how infidelity affects the BS and etc. As the conversation was going on, I noticed my wife seemed distracted, like she was trying to forget some suppressed memories. She seemed not wanting to be involved in the conversation. And she kept excusing herself to get more drinks, to go to the bathroom, to check on the kids and etc. after my in-laws left. I confronted her. And that's when she told me that she has something to tell me. She sat me down and warned me what I was about to hear was going to be hurtful. She then went ahead to tell me that she had asked time with her boss several times 2 months before our wedding and 3 weeks before I came back from a work trip abroad. She said before I left for my trip, we were not on good terms. That's true. 1 week before the trip we had one huge argument which turned into a small fight. And at some point I had started withdrawing emotionally. Then this guy came and pushed the right buttons and worked his way into my then fiancé's pants. She vented to him about the struggles in our relationship, and he was there to support her emotionally. I can remember this time that the calls and the video chats had reduced. And when we talked it didn't last long as before, but I didn't much into it. They hooked up at his place, and even at our apartment and on our bed. This guy was married and he had 3 kids and was about 20 years older than my wife. She told me that their affair lasted 6 weeks out of the 4 months I was away for work. Then when she caught this guy was also sleeping with other women, she ended it. And that's when she realized she had been played by this guy. She felt ashamed and hated herself that she had fallen for a player. A few days after she had ended her affair, she discovered she was pregnant. She knew the AP would not support her, and if I discovered that she was pregnant I would leave her and her family would disown her, especially her father. So she decided to terminate the pregnancy. I remember her calling me crying and confessing her love for me and asking me whether I will ever leave her. Then she started blowing up my phone with love messages telling me she couldn't wait to see me and everything. Before she finished her confession, both of us were in tears. But rage and anger were eating me from inside, and I was trying really hard not to tell or break anything. She then went ahead to swear that she has never cheated on me during our marriage and that she has always wanted to confess but didn't know how to do that. She said that when the conversation of her cousins came up, all the guilt came back in full force and hit her hard. That the memories she had tried to suppress were eating her up. I don't know what to do. I love my wife very much, and I say that I have been happily married for those 6 years and I don't want to lose anything right now. Not my girls, not my wife, not my house. But I don't know how to get over this. It has been 2 days since her confession, and honestly the only thing that keeps me moving is my 2 daughters. I trying to be strong for them, but I feel like losing my mind and going insane. Everything seems fake and like a lie. I have been sleeping in my car even though we have a spare bedroom. And I have started smoking again. And am trying to avoid my wife and as much as possible and ignoring anything that comes out of her mouth. I can't even look at her in the eyes. Am lost. Any advice is appreciated, please. Story 2. Stayed with my cheater. What life is like a year later. So my worst nightmare happened over a year ago, and I can share that story if anyone is interested. My spouse had an emotional affair that went on for 3 months. I know this because I have actual proof, but even though I may minimize her actions, I will admit that this affair would have been a lot worse had I not found out, confronted her. When I found out, I went crazy. I can honestly empathize with people who do irrational shit when they find out they've been cheated on, because betrayal is painful, especially when it's undeserved. Many posts on this sub were very encouraging, but I realized that most times, commenters would suggest for posters to leave their spouse because once a cheater always a cheater, etc., which I get. I stayed. And it was hard at first, and it is still hard at times. What has made this year work is that I am intentional about not dwelling on what happened, because it will lead to failure, and more importantly, it will drive me crazy. Also, I feel my partner has been genuine with our reconciliation. We talk about the cheating every now and then, and most times it's not when we're mad. Sometimes if I'm thinking about it, I'll just tell her and we'll talk about it. But before you think our relationship is some seventh heaven episode, I've gotten upset and made comments about her cheating in ducked up ways. We've also found healing by doing more date nights, taking active roles in the housework duties, sharing interests and hobbies, and most importantly having our own time and hobbies. A lot of what led to cheating was a lack of communication about how unhappy we were and how we acted out of obligation to what we thought married people were supposed to do and be. Now I do a lot of things that make me happy. I spend so much more time with family and friends, and every day I am doing things I enjoy. I can say that I am happy. Even if I wasn't married, I'd still be happy. And that's my story of how I have been able to cope through this and survive. I've accepted that I may always be in survival mode, but I stayed because I wanted to forgive and see if we could mutually rebuild and heal, and so far, we have been able to do that. This hasn't stopped me from being paranoid or thinking she may never cheat again, but I don't have those thoughts so frequently that they affect my mental health. To all those who want to give it a try again, I say do what you want. Regret. Sometimes people will end something and regret it. I know some people will say this might be a waste of time, but life isn't going to promise that any future relationships will be better. I just think if you give someone a second chance, you have to do so on your terms. I told my wife I want to work it out, but I realized my happiness is just as important as our happiness, which is why I've invested more in self-love and self-care. Most of these posts are people who have survived by leaving, and to them, I offer support and hopes to find a happier future. But I would like to know some stories of others who have survived while staying with their partner. If anyone has any questions for me, I am totally open to sharing. I just didn't want this post to be so long. Lol. Edit 1. A big part of the story I left out was that we had a daughter already when this happened. During the month break, our daughter went back and forth to both my home and her. She was staying with family. When my wife apologized to me, she talked about how she regretted putting our child and extended family through this. My wife does not need me for financial reasons and vice versa, and while she was away she had every opportunity to cut ties, but she didn't and continuously made efforts to talk to me. Redditor's reactions. Redditor 1. I believe staying and leaving are both hard decisions needing lots of courage, hope, and love. Especially love for yourself, and I'm glad you found your own happiness. Thank you for sharing your story. Redditor 2, my so had a maybe 2-week emotional affair. Nothing physical or sexual. Not very long before I found out. He told me himself. We split up. Went through the separation process, I moved out and got a new place. We have 2 kids. It was rough. About 6 months after being apart and both of us just solo parenting, and no, neither of us dated anyone else in that time, and he realized he was a big ducking idiot. He set up therapy for us, the kids and himself. He quit his late-night second job so he could spend more time with everyone. We slowly started dating again. Just doing fun family things, taking date nights. It's been almost 2 years. We still go to therapy, but we don't really talk about it anymore. I'm honestly over it. He had a rough time where he didn't understand what the duck he needed, and I didn't notice him needing help. He didn't have a healthy support system telling him he needed to work on his life, just a bunch of you do you. We're not very close to those people anymore. We weren't super happy at that point anyway, so it was probably a blessing in disguise. I'm lucky I come from a background where I'm able to understand the why. Obviously it's never an excuse, but an explanation can help to find a solution. Now he turns his attention inwards, to himself and us. We're the happiest we've been, communicate regularly and still go to therapy, because healthy communication skills are always a good thing to learn. If you don't have kids, it's easy to jump on the GTFO train. And for those people maybe that's the right choice for them. This was the right choice for us. My partner's willingness and constant commitment to change is probably what separates us from others, and if you wanna hate on this, you go for it. Everyone needs to live their life the way they see fit. Tomorrow isn't promised, and I preferred to work on something I had already started. Our lives are better for it, and so are our children. Redditor 3, I also stayed. At 1 year, I would have written a post that sounded like yours. At 2 years I was even a little bit happy. At 3 years, another D-Day, even worse than the previous, as now there is another child. I've accepted that my ex has a major character problem. I'll never not recommend leaving a cheater. Anyone capable of such a deception even once is absolutely capable of doing it again, even after seeing how much it hurts their partner.